all the pressure for such a long time has been we have to play an extra conference game. I'm sorry that you have to play Michigan State, UCLA, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Maryland, Purdue, or Nebraska, because that's the bottom 7 teams in your conference versus, Joe, the bottom 7 teams that were ranked in the SEC, Texas A&M, Florida, Arkansas, South Carolina. And Joe, some people thought South Carolina should have been in the playoff. Like, those are different teams. UCLA came into the SEC and got patty smacked by some of those teams. So I look at this and say to myself, let the conferences do what's best for them. We got to come up with a format that's best, that everybody can agree with, because Joe, they keep bickering. They keep arguing. We're not going to move forward if nobody's going to accept it.
So part of my problem, and I brought this up to you pre-show, we already started debating. Shocker, we argue before the show even starts. It's the charm of it. But I don't think that the premise, Blake, I think it's misunderstood. I think that there is this very small portion of individuals that are not SEC fans that think that the SEC plays a soft non-conference schedule. I think that people that actually watch the sport and pay attention to it know that's not true. And they understand the rigors of playing in the SEC, that it is more challenging. As you just illustrated, the 7th best team in the SEC is a lot better than the 7th best team in the Big Ten.
Just for reference, it would have been Michigan State versus South Carolina.
I think that the benefit has nothing to do with improving the quality of the schedule. It will do nothing for anybody's scope on how, if they feel they're qualified for the college football playoff. Everybody knows that they're playing challenging enough schedules for that. There is an added benefit with a 16-team playoff where there are allotted 4 spots and a reshaping of the championship weekend for the conference for how you can generate more revenue. And the way that you can generate more revenue is playing that 9th game, getting another game paid for by ESPN. And what has been pitched are the teams that are fighting for those 4 at-large spots in the 16-team playoff would square off with one another, and the winners of those singular games would go on to play in
Joe,
the college
you're adding 3
playoff.
more games when you do that.
No, but no, you're not adding 3 more.
You're adding 3 more. You're adding 3 more. You're adding a 16-team playoff. That's 1. So more teams will play a playoff game, a play-in game to the playoff in your conference. Then you're adding another P4 game, not technically adding per like the 12, but you're adding, if you're the SEC, you're adding a 3rd straight. By the way, in some instances, if you do with the Big Ten, 4 Power 4 opponents that weren't currently on your roster. So if I'm a top 16 team in the SEC, let's take South Carolina as an example. Okay, at the end of the year, I have to do a play-in. I'm in the 16-team playoff. By the way, I got to play Clemson, and at the beginning of the year, I have to play the Big Ten. You're going to have to now explain to me how that's equal and equality to them.
Okay,
it's not.
Wait. But this is the whole problem with it. And part of your argument has been like, why does everybody care what the SEC does? The inverse should be applied here. Why does the SEC care what anybody else thinks? Why not maximize your schedule with the most amount of competitive matchups as possible in order to flood more money into the conference?
Because it's not great, Joe.
But we're talking about 2 different things. I'm talking about how to maximize the broadcasting.
You were aggravated last week because everybody was doing things for revenue. So now you're saying add the game so you make more revenue.
When did I say that I was aggravated?
No, we literally came out here last week and had a whole discussion in reference to the only reason they're expanding the playoffs is really because of money. Is it not? So now you're
saying, but I didn't wait. I didn't voice that like I thought that was a serious problem. The sport needs more money. Revenue sharing is going to complicate the amount of available money available that they are now required to pay
the money for football. See, we got to separate 2 things here. Football is not hurting for money. They're not. What administrations are having problems with is funding everything else. See, their argument is not about the money for football. The argument is about how are they going to keep Title IX afloat? How are they going to keep women and other non-generating sports afloat? It's not the same.
I disagree on this. I think that athletic
you literally
need
had 3
money.
ADs this week in the SEC say that the reason that they need more revenue is for non-generating revenue sports. They have come out there, and I will pull up the quotes. My AD, the team that I cover, literally that was the first comment that he said. It's the first thing that he says. So if we want to come out here and say that football is hurting, they're not hurting for money.
They're not hurting for money, but we have had examples of schools already announcing that they're cutting programs, that they're cutting multiple people in their athletic departments. My whole point with this.
Why do they need more?
Wait. Because you're now sharing money with players.
Okay, but why do they need more?
Having more money to share with players allows for you to, at the maximum level, all the teams in your conference out-recruit all the other teams in other conferences.
They always have. That's not – recruiting means nothing in that regard.
That's not completely true. They haven't just always out-recruited every single team.
Yeah, you're right. Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, those teams have never out-recruited the smaller teams in their conference. You're right.
Blake, I'm trying to just illustrate the point that you're not adding a 9th game for the purpose to prove that the SEC is better. Nobody's asking for them to do that.
Then why is the
This is coming from inside the house. This is my problem with it. The arguing about this is coming inside of the SEC.
Joe, no, it's not. Joe, Ross Dellinger reported that they would not go to a 5-11 model until the SEC went to a 9th conference game. It's not just coming from the SEC, bud. Go look it up.
Wait, I think you're conflating the two. I think that there's because
no, I'm not. They are not going to agree to some football formats that's best for the SEC until they get a 9th conference game. And all I am bringing up is it's not created equally when I can look at the bottom 7 in the Big Ten versus the bottom 7 in the SEC and say to myself, okay, so Joe, if I'm adding a 9th conference game, I'm going to have to more than likely add Georgia, Bama, Texas A&M, Florida, South Carolina, LSU, Tennessee. You have more teams in your conference than this other team does. You have 2 more teams than this team in your. Do you not?
No, I'm not shaking my head at that. I'm just like I'm shaking my head at the argument because again, I don't think anyone is sitting here saying that.
Did the Big Ten, per Ross Dellinger, not come out today and say that they will not accept what the SEC formatted of the 5-11? They don't go to 9.
What I had read, the quote that was in one of Ross's articles that he has put out this week was not for the 5-11. They said that they wouldn't move to a 9-game schedule unless there was clarity on the 4-4-2-2-1-1 model. They wouldn't move to the 9-game schedule unless they were moving in that direction. That was what was brought up.
Hold on.
I didn't see that in relation to the 5-11.
No, I will pull it up for you. Tony Batiti met with ADs today and said that they will not accept it. I will go find it too. I mean, literally.
The Big Ten?
The Big Ten will not accept a 5+11 model unless the SEC goes to 9 conference games. They're also putting pressure on them. I can find it right now. It's not just coming from inside the SEC. It's not. It isn't.
I'm pulling up the quote. Wait.
Okay, please pull up the quote.
And we have a call earlier today. Big Ten ADs discussed the 5AQ plus 11 at large CFP model under consideration in the SEC. Many ADs say they would not support such a model if the SEC remains at 8 conference games. The Big Ten plays 9 conference games.
See, that's what
we were. Okay, we were having 2 different conversations while we were talking about this. Okay, I understand what you're saying, and I understand what this quote is from Ross.
I mean, they're not accepting it. That's the point that's all of the point that I'm trying to make here. Now, Alex brings up a $5 super chat saying, Blake, you're not bringing up Mississippi State, Auburn, Oklahoma. Okay, cool. Purdue, Maryland. It doesn't matter. So the bottom feeder of Mississippi State, Purdue, my guy, they won 1 game. You can bring in the $5 super chat and say, oh, well, you're missing out the bottom. Joe, Oklahoma went 6-6. Like, it's not the same as Maryland and Purdue. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not.
But I just get perplexed by like generally SEC fans getting worked up over this because I just don't think that anyone argues that. I don't think anyone argues that the SEC is so much is not as strong as the Big Ten. Nobody has ever argued that the Big Ten is stronger than the SEC.
Then why do they need to go to 9 conference games? Why is it such a big deal then to the Big Ten? Why not accept that format then?
I would argue that this move is more so because they don't like the 5-11 model. I think that they're just trying to be difficult.
More SEC teams would get in over them, correct? That's what this is about. So they're using 9 conference games as hey, man, we play an extra conference game. But you're going to now have to explain to a team like Florida, Tennessee, South Carolina, and others, Kentucky, who plays Louisville at the end of the year. Joe, are they going to play 11 P4 games? 11. That's what you're asking them to do. Because
why would they play 11?
I'm glad you brought it up. Because if you accept the Big Ten SEC challenge, you are adding another P4 opponent. At the end of the season, for those teams who have rivals at the end of the season, they play out of conference. So they would have 11 P4 opponents plus 9 conference games.
I would assume we go to the Big Ten SEC competition where they face off with one another, I would assume that they would probably eliminate rivalries that are happening in other conferences. I would bet that they would. I bet that they wouldn't keep that.
You're doing it with the entire conference. You're not doing it with just one. Joe, Florida literally just had that. We break down Florida's schedule every year. They just had it. They just went through it. So again, 9 conference games for some of these teams in the SEC, it's not going to be created. Does Ohio State play a team that is a rival that's outside their conference? No. Does Michigan? No. Does Oregon? Yes, they have Oregon State. So you have 1 versus 6. It's not created equally.
Notre Dame, USC, which we talked about last week.
Notre Dame, USC. So that would be 2. Name others. My only point here is if you can't look at the middle of the pack of a conference and say, we're not going to accept your model because we don't think that – Joe, here's the bottom line. The Big Ten is saying we don't think that we're going to get enough teams in the playoff if you don't go to 9 conference games. So we want auto bids. That's exactly essentially what they're going down to. That's all that this SEC meeting is revolving around. What 16-team model are they going to revolt around? They're all bickering about it. All of them. They don't want to go to it, and the SEC does because they think that they'll get more revenue by getting more teams in. If they did the 5-11 model with 16 teams, Joe, they would have gotten 7 teams into the playoff, and the Big Ten knows that. They know that. That's why they're not accepting it.